Hey, I'm Tim.
And I'm Matt, and welcome to the Mr. Maple Show.
We greatly appreciate you watching today's video. We're in these series of questions that I really think hopefully will give you a lot of information that will give you more confidence when you're growing your Japanese maples. We appreciate you watching this video, so make sure you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com. We had 10 new exciting trees every Tuesday at 10 a.m. That's an email you'll definitely want to be a part of.
Yeah, and if you get anything out of these videos, the best way to reward us is shopping on MrMaple.com, but also sharing these with your gardening friends. Like, subscribe, and share. That's the greatest way to reward us if you're enjoying this content. So today we have one of our most commonly asked questions: why are Japanese maples grafted?
Japanese maples are pretty unique in the fact that there's a lot of cultivars. Check out our cultivar video, What is a Maple Cultivar? I think you'll definitely have a lot of useful information in there. And that's one of the main reasons why we're grafting, is to produce those cultivars.
Yeah, so a real quick answer is that no Japanese maples grown from seed are typically named varieties. There could be a few exceptions where things have like traits, but Japanese maples aren't a cultivar from seed. So by grafting, we've locked in a defined set of traits. So definitely check out our cultivar video because we explain a little bit deeper what the term cultivar really means. But the short answer to that is that cultivars have been cultivated through asexual propagation to provide a specific set of traits that want to be replicated. So Japanese maples are grafted, one, because it replicates those traits. So that's the first part of the answer. But there's a lot of reasons why grafting a Japanese maple is superior to other means of propagation, like rooted cuttings or from seed.
Yeah, Japanese maples by graft are grafted so that they are a genetic clone of the reason this tree was selected for. A cultivar is a known set of traits that we know about a plant, and we title it with a cultivar so that we can continue to propagate that known set of traits, that spring color, fall color, summer color, the way the tree grows its habit, along with how sun tolerant it is, how heat tolerant it is. And by seed, we find a lot of variability when it comes to Japanese maple seedlings. Just because someone has a red Japanese maple out there in the yard doesn't make it a blood good. It can be a very beautiful plant, but it may be an upright tree that may have a different fall color or may not be able to handle sun as well as blood good.
So for the discussion purposes, we'll throw everything as far as air layers and things like that into that category of rooted cutting, since those are essentially rooted cutting of a Japanese maple. We'll categorize those all into one. And the reason why Japanese maples are superior in the landscape when they're grafted is because it gives them a better set of roots, and it gives them an earlier start. It actually gives them more of a push right away, but it actually helps them fight off diseases that can be ground-borne pathogens, and it gives them a standardized root system that can be much more durable for the tree going forward.
And by no means are we saying that a Japanese maple can't be rooted.
Yeah, we've rooted thousands.
Yeah, we've rooted thousands. But the issue here is, why is a grafted Japanese maple superior to that? And it's because it makes the tree, a grafted clone adds a vigorous root system to the plant, so that some of these dwarfs will actually grow and perform well in the landscape. Two, it prevents it from catching a lot of soil-borne diseases that clonal root systems, which happen through rooted cuttings or may happen through air layering, they can get attacked by.
Now, rooted cuttings are a great way to grow a Japanese maple for container culture. So if you're going to grow one for a bonsai or one that's always going to be in a pot, certainly a rooted cutting can work, because those trees don't need to be super vigorous. They don't need to be as resistant to soil, because you're able to control all the conditions within that soil climate. You've got your own little biodome essentially in that container, and you're going to control all aspects of nutrient content and everything in that container. But for ground-grown Japanese maples, and essentially landscape Japanese maples, grafting is far superior. You're basically getting a standardized root system that's going to improve the overall health of the tree. Many of the lace leaf cultivars, so if I were to find a really cool seedling of Japanese maple that happened to be a lace leaf, and I wanted to introduce it and name it, the very first thing I'm going to do is graft that tree, because getting it onto a healthier root system is going to create more vigor, and it's going to expand the lifespan of that tree. So a grafted Japanese maple should live to be well over 100 years old. So you're going to be improving the overall health of that plant, but you're also going to be putting vigor and just a better motor behind what you're trying to grow.
By grafting it to a nice, vigorous root system, we're providing that plant with a good root system so it can take up nutrients and water more efficiently that the seedling that was selected might not have originally had. Some trees like butterfly would be a very poor tree because it's variegated. Or like Matt said, some of the lace leaves, because they don't often have a very strong root system. And by grafting them, we're improving the plant, and then we evaluate that grafted specimen to see what this tree is actually going to do down the road.
Yeah, so basically by grafting, what we're doing is we're creating a union between a rootstock. We've grown a Japanese maple seedling. Now what we use here to get technical on you is an Acer palmatum subspecies palmatum. That's basically a small leaf green Japanese maple that's been selected for having a great root system and good vigor. And so we know what we're getting there. We're getting a good engine to drive our tree forward. We're getting a good motor that's actually going to improve the overall quality and health of the Japanese maple. So by grafting to that, we're only going to keep that root system involved. We're going to put the cultivar on top, and from there we're going to grow a whole beautiful tree. And it's basically a union between these two trees. The best of the root system and the best traits of the top.
Yeah, and by doing that, we create a healthy tree that perform well in the landscape. Like we said before, rooting cutting Japanese maples can happen, and there can be examples of those that perform well in the landscape. But overall, your odds are much better with a grafted Japanese maple. It's going to give you a healthy tree out in the landscape. Years ago, many of some older, larger nurseries that were very old decided that they could just produce Japanese maples by rooted cutting, so they selected the ones that perform, that can be rooted very easily. And then they put their fields full of them. And then what happens is, year by year, slowly, 50% of them die. Then 50% more of them die. Then 50% more of them die. And then you're ended with very little plants. And then what happens when they sell that tree to you? It's not going to make a tree that performs well in the landscape. And by grafting, we can ensure that a lot of our customers, with proper care, receive a healthy plant that's going to be resistant to Pseudomonas, Verticillium, Alboatrum, and a lot of those issues that can occur with Japanese maples that are done especially by rooted cutting.
Yeah, it's certainly going to give them their best chance at, being an awesome tree and having a longer, healthier lifespan. Now, one of the things about that with the rooted cuttings, you certainly can do it. You'll hear us say it every single time. Somebody will say, well, I have a rooted cutting Japanese maple. It's in the ground. It looks amazing. Yeah, I do too. I've rooted thousands of them, literally thousands. And there's certain types that root more than others. Certain types need to be grafted more than others. So there's some variability there within just Acer palmatum cultivars. In general, you're just going to get a much better overall plant from grafting. You're just going to get a better plant that's more quality for what you're looking for the landscape. Something that's going to perform longer and be a more durable plant for sure. There's so much more uniformity and just so much more of what you're getting is quality in a graft, because you know what you're going to get. It's going to be something that goes out there, performs at a higher level, and you're not getting those inconsistencies that you may get with a tree that's a rooted cutting. Certain cultivars would be, wimps that wouldn't grow well at all as a rooted cutting, and it would pretty much essentially end the cultivar if you only grew them from rooted cutting, because like say for instance red filigree lace. No one's ever going to start a nursery growing red filigree lace from rooted cuttings, right?
No.
That would be the worst nursery ever. Yep. It really just wouldn't perform very well for you in a long-term setting.
And what we're doing, like Matt talked about earlier, is creating a genetic clone. From seed, Japanese maples throw a lot of variability. They may look very similar, but they'll actually vary quite different once you evaluate them long-term. They'll grow to different heights, different fall colors, have different sun tolerance, have a different habit. And a grafted clone is how we lock in that set of traits and create a clone of the cultivar, the reason why it was originally selected, and give those traits to your garden so that you enjoy exactly what you're looking for when it comes to that selection.
Exactly. There's so much misinformation, I think, out there as far as grafts. I find that grafts are by far the superior way to grow Japanese maples. And every expert I've talked to around the world would agree, from Japan to Holland to Belgium. Anybody I've talked to that grows Japanese maples commercially sees that as a far superior way as far as growing different cultivars for the landscape setting. That's by far the most superior way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that once you dig into the cultivars, they lend you so many different ways to find what you're looking for in the landscape.
Yeah.
A lot of people will try to train an upright selection to be weeping. Well, if you get a grafted cultivar, you can get that weeping selection that naturally has that weeping habit. It does that all by itself, but it's a grafted clone of that, so you know what you're getting, and doesn't require a lot of training. You don't have to fight against the natural habit of the plant when you get that grafted cultivar. And again, check out the cultivar. What is a maple cultivar video we have on our YouTube channel. that will explain more about what these selections are and why they're selected.
I'd like to reiterate too that so many different cultivars that are awesome, especially lace leaves, dwarf types, coral bark types, so many different variations that would not do well on their own roots. So you could grow them from rooted cutting, but they would just make so much wimpier plants in the landscape, and their performance would vary a good bit. What we're basically doing is taking the best of both worlds. We have the best possible root system that's going to be durable and really go out there and perform well, but then we're putting the part we like, the cultivar part, the part that has the unique traits, and we're improving that by having it on the best possible root system.
We greatly appreciate you watching this video. I hope this answered some of your questions on why these Japanese maples are grafted. We try to do our best to answer a lot of those questions that we're getting in by email or that we see in the comment sections. If you have any other ideas for future videos, put those in the comment section. We do check those out.
Hey, I'd actually like to throw out there that we do some things that aren't grafted. So if you're looking for plants that aren't grafted, go to our Mr. Maple, you can go to the Mr. Maple cultivars that are currently available, or you can go to our Mr. Maple files and you can filter them by not grafted. So you can check out maybe some plants we've grown from seed that have more bonsai-like characteristics, or species from seed that are going to come back true from form. So that's a great way to look at some of the species as well.
Also, if you're into bonsai and you're like, hey, I want something that's from rooted cutting, we do offer a lot of Satsuki azaleas that are fantastic, fantastic for bonsai as well, that are done from rooted cut.
One thing about our nursery too is we do a modified side veneer graft. It's the way my dad's always done it too, but it makes a very, very clean union. So over time, those grafts are going to clean up and look really nice. We were at a garden show where we took mostly just really big stuff. I think we had only 7 gallons and larger. And a gentleman came up to me and he said, I don't believe any of these trees are grafted. And I said, well, you've paid us the best compliment possible, because that's what we're going for. I mean, a graft shouldn't be that noticeable. It should be something that cleans up. So we do a very low modified side veneer graft too.
You may see a more pronounced graft at a young age, but you gotta realize these are young plants. As they age, that graft is going to clean up quite a bit. Yeah,
typically anything we offer in a 1 gallon is going to be at least 2 years from graft. And so you can still notice a graft, but it's something that as it ages out, it tends to be something that cleans up very, very well on Japanese maples, especially when they're done right and in a means that like that modified side veneer graft, I think it's hard to beat for its quality of how it looks long term.
Yeah, and so we greatly appreciate you watching this video. Please like and subscribe.
Hey, God bless.
And have a great day.
All you have to do to get involved in the giveaway is like, subscribe, and share our video. Then under every single video you want, you can go and comment, I dig Mr. Maple. And every single time you comment, you'll be entered to win a Mr. Maple hat. So we're going to be doing a giveaway for one of these hats. We're coming up on 8,000 subscribers. Get involved.